Hi everyone, this is Adam Sweet with Soul Astrology, and today we have edition number 3 of the Anonymous Birth Chart Readings, a mini series in which I do bite-sized readings based on questions and charts submitted by you all. So today we're going to tackle the topic of relationships and divorce. Here is the anonymous chart. Let me get my tool and the question. The question is, my partner and I have really been struggling since last year. Our relationship has never been easy, but recently it seems doomed. I'm worried that we are headed for divorce. I'm curious what the astrology might say about our relationship and if we are going to make it. Well, first of all, my condolences. Nothing is harder than when something that should feel supportive and grounding, like marriage and a relationship, is on unstable ground, and then it feels like, yeah, our world is kind of crumbling around us. That is a really challenging dynamic to live with in life. So I definitely empathize with that. The first place we want to look in a chart for relationships is the seventh house. The seventh house is the house that is opposite the first house. The first house was called the helm of the ship in ancient Hellenistic astrology. And the seventh house, being opposite that first house, represents all of our closest relationships, including spouse, marriage, boyfriend, girlfriend, all of those types of dynamics, even can be close business partnerships. Also, in this native seventh house, we have Venus, the planet that naturally signifies relationships, in the seventh house as well. So, a lot of emphasis on relationships in this seventh house. Then we have the sign of Aquarius on the cusp of the seventh, or occupying the seventh, you could say. And the ruler of Aquarius is Saturn. Saturn is down here in the fourth house. The fourth house was the roots, or is the roots that support us. It is home and family. And Saturn is co-present with Mars. So we have both malefics down here in the fourth house, and they are squaring that seventh house Venus by superior square. So in ancient astrology, a superior square was when the planet that is in earlier zodiacal order is making a square to the planet in later zodiacal order. And whether it is whole sign square, which it is in this case, or by degree, that was considered to be one of the most difficult aspects in any chart, and was called being upon the 10th, or also known as domination. So, not an easy aspect. And like the native said, their relationship has always been a bit of a struggle. This is where I would see that in this chart. So, what we want to do to look at a timeline here is we want to pull up the transits. And what we're looking for is any emphasis on that seventh house. And what do we see here? But Pluto has just ingressed. It actually ingressed at the beginning of last year, and you'll notice that the natives said that their relationship has really been struggling since last year. So that initial ingress of Pluto into the seventh house would describe that perfectly. Pluto is the god of the underworld. It is the god of death and rebirth and riches, and is often associated with that sort of volcanic explosion around the dynamics of the house that it would first ingress into. So in this case, the seventh house. And what do we have? All of a sudden, we have that sort of underlying difficulty in the relationship is brought into the forefront. Does that mean that this native is headed for divorce? No. I always think that divorce is determined on the parties involved. Marriage is never 50-50. It's 100% and 100%. So if two people are bringing their best selves to the table and they want to actually work through it, an omen or sign like Pluto ingressing into the seventh house, that doesn't necessarily mean divorce. It could just mean that now those challenging dynamics present within the relationship are being brought to the forefront and are, yeah, needing to be addressed to be able to move forward in life in a more positive and supportive way throughout the relationship. There's also some other dynamics in this chart. We can often look for outer planets aspecting natal planets for activation. So I'll just point those out as like a little bonus here. We have transiting Saturn is trining natal Saturn by degree, and transiting Jupiter is trining natal Mars by degree. So again, we have an activation of those difficult planets in the fourth house and that difficult square to Venus in the seventh house. I think it's really important to always acknowledge that every planet has a dark side and a light side, or a yin and yang, and this diverse spectrum of significations. So, for example, Venus can be love and relationships, but it can also be lust and vanity. So, those are kind of the two extremes. Saturn can be, is the god of death and darkness, but also of spiritual wisdom that comes with age and develops maturity over time. So, just because we see a difficult dynamic in a natal chart like this doesn't necessarily mean that that's always going to show up that way in every chart. Context is everything. This could also be dynamic of a very mature, kind of spicy relationship that has arguments, but that people always come out on the other side of. So that's just like a little taste to not get too myopic when we see placements like this. And remember to always read the question, look for context, and know that those dynamics also can speak to certain time periods in our life. So at one point in time, that might be a relationship with a lot of conflict. At a later point in time, after some work is done, or counseling or therapy, that could be a relationship that has a lot of depth and maturity to it. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I hope that that was helpful for you today and you got some clarity and maybe some hopefulness out of it too. And yeah, I guess it's always good to report back and let the astrologer know what is kind of shaping up. Helps us do better astrology, and then we can see the symbols really speaking that way. So, okay, if you would like to be included in this mini series, please submit a birth chart data and a question to adam@soulastrology.com. And we'll take a look at whatever questions and charts that you all have out there. So thanks again so much for watching. And I hope you all have a good day. Bye.